Good Wednesday afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Plenty of Browns to talk about. Still no definitive word on the availability for Myles Garrett following that one-car crash out in Medina County a couple of days ago. The Browns did issue a statement. Andrew Berry issuing this statement about Myles Garrett. First and foremost, thankful that Myles Garrett in his passenger, no other party seriously injured single car accident. After medical evaluation, our team doctors, University Hospital, have concluded Myles sustained shoulder sprain, biceps sprain, minor lacerations, some bumps and bruises, various other body parts. Myles didn't suffer any fractures, and he cleared concussion protocol. Currently, focus is providing Myles the medical care needed for him to return to football activity. Although we hope to have him back soon, his availability for Sunday's game in Atlanta evaluated by team doctors, ongoing process throughout the week. Some other news about the Browns and availability for the game coming up Sunday as updated by Kevin Stefanski. Guys not practicing: Joel Bitonio, Taven Bryant, Jadeveon Clowney, Myles Garrett, Haig, one of the newer guys in concussion protocol, JOK, and Denzel Ward with back and ribs. So guys not practicing, and that's a lengthy list specifically on the defensive side of the ball, some reason for concern. Let's welcome in Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. And Tim, there's some guys, Denzel Ward popping up there. You would assume he'll be able to go, but that's a new name. Clowney and Garrett just don't have any idea. Same with JOK. A groin injury is one of those things, especially the way JOK plays with that explosiveness. You just never know.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a beat-up group on that defense. I mean, that short turnaround from that, collapse against the Jets to a physical Thursday night game against the Steelers obviously seems like it's taken its toll on this roster, especially the defense. With Garrett, obviously his situation is going to be interesting to watch. I mean, personally, I kind of would be surprised if he plays on Sunday, just considering the nature of the accident it was in, the state of the car that, what happened after as a result of the wreck. I'd be surprised if he played just because of that sort of thing. Jadeveon Clowney, we don't necessarily know, what his status is going to be at JOK. We really haven't heard much, I guess, as far as, severity. It doesn't seem like anything that came out for multiple weeks. But, I mean, this defense right now, health-wise, is in pretty bad shape. And, there's never a good time for it. It doesn't help, when you're going up against a Falcons team that has the ability to score some points. They put up some good offense on Sunday. They put up 27 points in the win in Seattle, 27, 27, and 26 points in the last 3 games. So they could score. And, this defense is going to have to dig deep. The backup guys are going to have to step up, really. And it'll be interesting to see by the end of Friday who's going to go and who's going to be ruled out, who's not even going to make the trip to Atlanta.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I would be Myles Garrett's going to want to play without question. You saw how he played last couple of games last year. The question is, will he be able to go? And I'm with you. That it would surprise me, but again, they're going to monitor him throughout. All right, Browns are the league's leading rushing team. They lead the lead in rush yards. They lead the lead in rushing attempts. They're averaging 5 yards a carry. And they've run the ball, a league best 114 times. Nick Chubb is leading the league in rushing. He talked about the Browns' success running the football and wearing other teams down.
Coach Cullen is huge in our running game. He comes in fired up every day, going over their plan and making sure we execute it well. Also, Stump does a great job with the running game too. It's a collective unit of everyone in here making sure the run game's great.
I know you say sometimes you don't even know what you're doing during a run. When you go back and watch it, does it feel like your cuts are sharper than ever this year?
I'm not sure. It just happened. So.
Jacoby was talking about how he can almost see the opponents, that you're wearing them down just by their, look or body language. Do you ever notice that?
Things start to open up. I can't really see them getting tired, but toward the end of the game, things do start opening up a lot easier, I would say.
Is running do the talking. He isn't much on talking. I think I had made this point yesterday. If he continues to get the ball like he has the number of times, he's going to start being recognized. What Browns fans know he is probably the best running back in the league.
Yeah, and I think obviously the reason why he hasn't been recognized there is because he doesn't get the workload of guys like Derrick Henry or Jonathan Taylor most recently. But, this is the way the Browns kind of have to play right now until Deshaun Watson is able to come back, and he does come back, is they need to lean on the running game. And to their credit, that group has done a really good job. I mean, Nick Chubb has been as explosive as you could possibly ask for. He's been effective. Kareem Hunt's done his job. He's been able to have an impact both running the football and catching the football out of the backfield. But the offensive line, again, it's been the story. The key is they've been healthy. Jedrick Wills went down. I think it was in the second game, but he wasn't gone to second or third game. He wasn't gone too long. Came right back in. Still looks pretty good. He looks more like 2020 Jedrick Wills, which I think is kind of what the Browns have been hoping for. And then, of course, Jack Conklin comes back against the Steelers. He looks like his usual self. And we've seen, depth pieces coming to step up. The Browns have often gone with six offensive linemen. Just the blocking and all those things have been good. And this is the best way for them to win, is to control the clock, to be physical, to be the one, setting the tempo up front and letting those two running backs go right into a defense and just kind of try and wear them down a little bit. And then by the time you do that, you keep doing that enough, then the fourth quarter comes along. And then as Nick Chubb said, those running lanes seem to get bigger as the game wears on, as the defense gets more tired, so that even when they know the run's coming, it's much harder to stop it.
He mentioned Coach Callahan, Bill Callahan, a Browns offensive line coach, obviously involved in game planning the running game. So you mentioned the line. Pro Football Focus offensive line grades. The Browns currently rank 4th. It goes Eagles, Chiefs, Patriots lined up ahead of them. You see the starters for the Browns now. Posick, a guy that was filling in for J.C. Tretter, and he was battling Nick Harris. They planned for Nick Harris to be there. Conklin missed a couple of weeks. It was James Hudson. And there was some concern. I preface all this by saying, I'm not saying the first 3 weeks they've played the best defenses, but the offensive line has been really good. Give credit to the offensive line. There were some people that thought the offensive line might slip. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case.
Definitely not. They look as good as they have been. I think when it comes to the quality of opponents, you can only play who's directly in front of you. You can't control how good the other team's defense is, just what kind of talent they have. You can only worry about the guys you have on the guys you're going up against on any particular Sunday or any particular game. But the Browns have done what they've needed to do, and they've taken care of business, I guess, especially with up front. We've seen, particular Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller, they're as dominant a guard do as there is in football, and they've just been so rock steady all season long. And the junction point of this offensive line we saw a year ago was the tackles, and that the health of Wills and Conklin, their health was directly tied to the performance of the offensive line. We've seen Wills has been relatively healthy this year. Jack Conklin is back. And now that those guys are back, the offensive line is much more complete. And you're starting to see that really play out much more, and that affecting games more. The center thing, it would be interesting to see, how they would have fared if Nick Harris was at center. I think he would have been good, but Ethan Posick, I think, has done his job. He's been solid. They don't need him to be an all-pro, especially considering you have 2 all-pro caliber guards in Bitonio and Teller to the left and right of Posick to make his life a little easier.
Yeah, you mentioned the tackles. So without question, the Browns have been effective throwing the football with Jacoby Brissett. Take a look at this. This is pass block win rate. Wow, easy for me to say. And Jedrick Wills, 96%, has the second highest pass block win rate for tackles in the NFL. And take a look at James Hudson, who filled in, down at 7. So those, again, are guys that, there were some question marks. And I know people have been questioning Jedrick Wills. If you're winning pass blocking as a tackle at a 96% clip, your passing is going to be pretty effective. That was the problem last year. They weren't winning at the tackles. There was pressure coming in from the outside and getting to the quarterback. They're winning at the tackle position, and it's with predominantly 2 young guys. It'll change now with Conklin coming back.
Yeah, and obviously, when you're in the same category as guys like Laramie Tunsil or Rashawn Slater, as a tackle, you're doing something right. And it kind of matches up with the eye test with both Jedrick Wills and James Hudson. Obviously, there's the expectation of Wills needing to take that extra step up to kind of to validating his status as a top 10 pick. He's been good. I mean, he hasn't been elite, but he's been good, more than good enough to get the job done on that left side. Keeping Jacoby Brissett pretty upright. He hasn't really gotten beat too many times. I think he got beat once by Alex Highsmith against the Steelers on Thursday night. Granted, what was a great move by Alex Highsmith. You have to kind of tip your cap to that. But the real surprise is James Hudson being tied for 7th. I mean, we saw just how much Hudson really struggled last season. In the Steelers game in particular, him going up against TJ Watt a lot of times was a mismatch. Hudson just looked out of his element last year. This year just looks so much better. I mean, it matches up with the eye test because, watching the first 2 games when he filled in for Jack Conklin, you really never noticed James Hudson too much. And when you're talking about offensive linemen, that's a good thing because typically when you're getting noticed, when your name is being called, when your number is being called, that's when the official's calling you for a penalty, whether it's a holding or illegal downfield or something like that. We really haven't seen that with Hudson. And I think that's important for the Browns that he is coming along. He's playing well. Maybe could be a potential swing tackle for a couple of seasons. It's an important thing to have, and Hudson showing, some growth this year, I think is huge for this offensive line.
Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit of defense, and we'll look a little bit ahead towards the Falcons coming up. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Time for us to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about Browns linebacker Anthony Walker.
Yes, this is Dave S. from Florida. I've been a long-time Browns backer forever. My question is, why hasn't more been made of the Anthony Walker injury? I remember seeing, I haven't run it back yet, but literally he was on the ground hurt, and the Pittsburgh guy jumped on him and made the injury worse. And nobody said anything or any of that, no comments about it. I just thought it was horrible, and the guy should have been thrown out of the game for it. Thank you.
All right, so appreciate all the voicemails. Tim, we had Mary Kay Cabot on, and she asked Myles Garrett that before his one car accident, and he thought it was a bullshit play. Just leave it at that. I tend to agree. It was clear he was injured. They was jumped on. If you go back and look before it looks like he hit him in the throat too. I mean, there were a number of things that looked like they weren't quite right with that play. And Mary Kay said the league would look into it. You wouldn't hear about any fine or anything like that until later this week.
Yeah, that might probably come up, Friday, Saturday, when, those are typically when those fines are announced, for those roughing penalties, those unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. By the way, that probably should have been an unsportsmanlike penalty. The fact that it wasn't was really surprising. I mean, I remember, watching that game, seeing that hit, and, I think there was a penalty on that play, but I think it was for illegal man downfield against Pittsburgh. I'm surprised they didn't get that for unsportsmanlike conduct in that situation. Obviously, in hindsight, that probably should have been, because I thought, that was pretty uncalled for, because, I mean, Anthony Walker's down on the play. He's clearly in pain, and then Chukwuma Okorafor comes in and delivers an extra unnecessary hit, because I don't think that was in the play. I think the play was already past those guys by the time that hit came across. But, again, this is something we're going to find out. It's probably going to be a fine coming down the pipe in the next couple of days. I would think if it was a suspension, it probably would have happened already, to be honest. Because you look back at week 2, the fight that Mike Evans had with Marshawn Lattimore, it was a couple days after that where the NFL announced it suspended Mike Evans for a game. So I kind of get the sense, just based on timeline, that it's probably just going to be a fine in that instance. But yeah, it did not look good.
All right, this is from the Bleacher Report. One player from every team that should be benched ASAP. And for the Browns, they say Grant Delpit, in second-round pick. They kind of delineated 75-yard touchdown pass from Baker to Anderson, Flacco last-minute touchdown. I don't know necessarily that it is all on Grant Delpit, but I think a lot of Browns fans were expecting Delpit to take a pretty big step this year, and that hasn't happened yet. If he's able to do that, I think a lot of the things that we're talking about with the defense go away.
Yeah, and I think we also have to remember he's got their only interception of the season. He picked off Baker Mayfield in week 1, so he does have that to his credit. But I think it's hard to put, the secondary woes in the first 2 games off any one player in particular, because, there were all those discussions about communication and, trying to get signals across to everybody. And when that happens, you got 2 players doing different things. Essentially, when one guy's wrong in the secondary, when it comes to zone coverage, everybody's wrong. So there's blame to go around. It seemed like they were better in that department on Thursday night, especially playing some more man coverage looks. But I think it's way too early to give up on Grant Delpit. I mean, he's really only in his second season of full play, and I think he should be used more in a downhill type role. Kind of like, because I think him and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah fit into a style where they're best suited going downhill. And we really haven't seen the Browns do that, in those first 3 games too often. And I think that kind of needs to be utilized, because I think that's the strength of Grant Delpit's game. You go back to what he was doing at LSU. He was a master of the safety blitz. I get you don't blitz the safety every single play, but, there should be times where you're willing to experiment, drop him in the box a little bit, just give it a different look, especially with Anthony Walker out of the lineup for the rest of the season. The Browns need to try and find a way to be creative with Grant Delpit and maximize him now that he's getting more of a full workload.
Yeah, and quite honestly, with Anthony Walker being out there, they're going to need him to be more of a factor. The secondary needs to play better, just as a whole. That secondary has way too much talent to play the way they have the first 3 games. And if this team's going to do what they need to do, that secondary has to clean it up pretty quickly. So the Browns, we've talked about it. They have a number of guys on the defense banged up, questionable. How do you think that affects what Joe Woods might be willing to do and what he might have to do against the Falcons coming up on Sunday?
I think he might have to be more aggressive. And I say that knowing that, they're going up against a guy, Marcus Mariota, who he may not be elite as a passer, but he's still a pretty good running quarterback. There's good targets he's got in Drake London and Kyle Pitts, who are both really tall receivers, could be mismatches. But I think, especially if Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney are out, you're probably looking at starting Alex Wright and either Chase Winovich or Isaac Rochelle on the defensive front, and that's not going to get it done. I mean, we saw just, how well the Steelers neutralized Myles Garrett with double and sometimes even triple teams in there. They're going to have to find a way to manufacture a pass rush, and the way to do that is blitzing, especially with the woes you have in the front seven. You can mask that by being creative and relying on the strength of your team, which is a secondary. And maybe the key is turn up the blitz a little more. Don't be afraid to send that 5th, 6th, or even that 7th guy out there, because when you put pressure on a quarterback who is not very good, and like I said, Mariota is not the best thrower. If you can get him under pressure, there's a chance you can get a turnover. And we know the pass rush is the best thing a defense can do to make life tough on the quarterback. they got to be willing to dial it up. And I think that's been a criticism of Joe Woods throughout his tenure is he's been too hesitant to blitz. I can understand why, because you have Myles Garrett in the last 2 years, you have Jadeveon Clowney. But if there's ever a time to be aggressive and to send people on a consistent basis, this is the time to do it.
All right, so one guy that has been very effective for the Falcons offensively, Cordarrelle Patterson. And in fact, Cordarrelle Patterson was named the NFC's Player of the Week. He will present a challenge for the Browns. You see his rush yards, that's on the week. For the season, he's third in the league behind Saquon Barkley and Nick Chubb. So Patterson, a guy that I'm sure they're going to run up in that middle of that Browns defense, which we've been concerned about. It hasn't been a problem, but this will be a tough test for them.
Yeah, especially if Jadeveon Clowney's not able to go, because we know about Clowney's plus ability as a run defender. I mean, it makes such a difference when you have number 90 out there who's really good at setting an edge defensively in the run game and making it hard for backs to get to the edge. But when you look at Cordarrelle Patterson, I mean, it's an amazing story. A guy who's reinvented himself later in his career to be a really good running back. You said it, third in the league in rushing yards. He's also fifth in yards per carry at 6.2. So this is a guy who can get a lot of big plays. He's got size and speed. So that's going to be a tricky matchup. And especially, like I said, when you got Drake London and Kyle Pitts out there, the Falcons don't have a shortage on talent at the skill position. So there's going to be some tricky matchups that Joe Woods has to take into account there. But the best way to try and take a running back out of the equation is kind of the same thing I've been saying all season. The Browns need to play from in front. And when you do that, you know, it keeps a team from maybe wanting to run the football as much as they really want to.
Tim Bielik and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Jacoby Brissett talking about the Falcons as well as this Browns offense. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Jacoby Brissett met with the media. Browns are one of 3 teams in the NFL who have more rushing yards than passing yards this season. Brissett was asked if that bothers him as the quarterback.
I don't care. Why not?
It's working?
Yeah, it's working. I mean, yeah. It doesn't matter to me.
Jacoby, kind of along those lines, how fun is it when that running game really gets going?
Oh, it's exciting. I mean, we understand what that opposes to the defense and how it wears down the team in the fourth quarter. And then we got really good offensive line and we got really good backs. And we'll be a fool not to run the ball and make the defense defend that part of our game. So I'm excited for the future of that and how we're going to continue to help it out.
And Tim, I think one of the things you hear from that is one of the reasons why Kevin Stefanski really likes Jacoby Brissett. He truly doesn't care about numbers. He realizes running the ball is how they're going to win.
Yeah, I mean, that's the formula we've been seeing, play itself out for the last 3 weeks. Even in that Jets game, I mean, the offense didn't cost him the game. It was, the fact that the defense blew that 13-point lead with less than 2 minutes to go. The offense was the one that built the 31 to 20, the 13-point lead. Excuse me, I was blanking for a second. But when it comes to this offense and what they need to do, again, it comes down to the running game. Those guys need Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and the offensive line need to continue to do their thing. But, you also have to throw once in a while. You have to keep a defense honest. You can't just run every time, because you do, you're going to see defenses put 8, 9, maybe even 10 in the box in certain situations to dare you to throw the football. And we've seen Jacoby Brissett do enough when his number is called. He's been good enough when he's needed to be. in those situations. And the connection with him and Amari Cooper the last 2 weeks has been tremendous. It's been a great thing to watch for the Browns. That, you know, the guy they traded for to be their number one receiver has played like a number one receiver. And the chemistry he's had with Jacoby Brissett early on has been huge. You saw that third down play early in the fourth quarter. There was a play action, you know, when Brissett hits Cooper for a 30-some yard completion, a really big gainer to get them going in that situation. That's exactly what the Browns need. You can't just rely on the running game. It's still a passing game, and you need your quarterback to get things done where they needed it. Jacoby Brissett has done just that.
Let's take a look at this graph. So Brissett, it's expected points added. So EPA is expected points added, PFF grade. So you see the only ones that are above Jacoby Brissett right now, and this is through 3 weeks, Mahomes, Tua, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Lamar Jackson. The brown helmet is below those, and actually is a little bit further ahead in PFF grade than Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. But we'll call that, that's pretty good neighborhood to be in for a quarterback for a run-oriented team. He's doing exactly what they need him to win football games.
100%. And I think obviously when you have that running game, it's going to take pressure off the quarterback. And, you know, again, they're going to need him to make plays at certain points of the game. And for 3 weeks, he's been able to do that when his number's been called. I mean, when you have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, that play action game is going to be working very well. He hasn't been asked to throw 50 times a game. I think if there's ever a situation where he has to throw 50 times a game, the Browns could be in some big trouble. The good news for them is that hasn't happened. They've been able to be in control of these games by and large through, you know, the first 3 weeks of the season. The run game's gotten them the lead. They've been able to play from in front, which is where they need to be, where they're going to have their best chance for success. And I think the one thing I've thought about Jacoby Brissett since the Browns got him is he's a player who kind of, his play is kind of somewhere equivalent to the talent he has, that the better talent he has around him, the better he can be. He's not a quarterback that's going to elevate his talent, but he's also not going to be a player who's going to sink the talent around him because he doesn't turn the football over. He may never be a big play guy, but you still need him to complete some intermediate throws. We saw, you know, the connection with him and Cooper, like I talked about earlier. He also had some big plays with David Njoku on Thursday. We saw how big Donovan Peoples-Jones was in week 1. You know, it's going to be important for him to continue to do that whenever he has to make those intermediate throws, to keep making them, to keep putting pressure on the defense anytime they overload. Anytime the Browns go play action and there's a shot to be taken, he needs to be willing to take it, if nothing else, to kind of keep a defense honest so that they can't keep leaning on the run game. Because there's going to be a point where an opponent is really going to dare Jacoby Brissett to beat them. The way he's playing right now, he's certainly got the ability to do that. The question is, you know, how long can that continue? He's only got 8 games where he really has to continue to play at a high level. If he plays at that level more often than not, the Browns should be fine when they hand the keys back to Deshaun Watson.
Is his style of play, the way he's playing, sustainable? I mean, I don't see him doing anything that is crazy. So I would say, yeah, it's sustainable. Do you think he can sustain playing the way he has?
It's going to be tough with some of the defenses he has to face. I mean, you know, in particular, you know, you look at the end of that 11-game window with the Bills and the Buccaneers. I mean, those are 2 of the better defenses in the NFL. Those are going to be the ones where I think he could really have a hard time. But you look at the schedule in front of him, you know, Atlanta doesn't have a great defense. The Chargers defense is banged up. We just saw Joey Bosa got put on the injured reserve, so he won't be able to play in that Week 5 game. They still have Khalil Mack, so that pass rush is still going to be tough to go through. But you know, that's not as tough a defense. Baltimore's pass defense is the worst in the league right now, and that's about by a 57-yard difference in terms of yards per game. The Bengals, you know, they've given up some plays at times through the season. They can be vulnerable, I guess. Plus, that's going to be a home game. So when I look at Jacoby Brissett, I mean, he's playing at a high level for him, but it also doesn't seem like he's doing things that are outside of his element. I think he's gotten a lot of help from Kevin Stefanski, who I think has called some good games for him, particularly the last 2 weeks. We've seen that offense is very quarterback friendly, and he's really doing a good job of giving Brissett some easy throws to make. And there's trust there. I think that's important. Is there's some trust between Kevin Stefanski and Jacoby Brissett. And I go back to that third down and one, that completion to Amari Cooper in the fourth quarter. They could have easily run the football. Or they could have asked Jacoby Brissett to run the quarterback sneak, which he does just at an incredibly proficient level, whether it's straight ahead or if he goes off the left guard for about an extra 3-4 yards. That's there. But the fact that Stefanski has trusted Brissett and his arm to make that throw tells you a lot about the trust that Stefanski has in his backup quarterback, and I think that's huge. They seem to have a good chemistry out there. Stefanski understands what works for Brissett. That's working right now. There may be a natural dip within these 11 games because it's rare that you see anybody play at a consistently high level for 11 games, but by and large, I think Brissett's got a chance to be very close to this level the rest of the way until Deshaun Watson can come back.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, take a look at this, and this is crazy. So Nick Chubb has forced 26 missed tackles so far this season. That's the most in the NFL. Not only is it the most in the NFL, it's more than 30 other NFL teams. So Nick Chubb, with the 26 forced missed tackles, has forced more missed tackles than all but 2 of the other teams. That's how good Nick Chubb has been.
Yeah, and I mean, you see all those videos of Nick Chubb in the weight room. You know what he's doing off the squat racks is clearly paying off on the football field. You know, it seems like these are professional defenders he's going up against, and we know the Steelers have guys who can tackle. I mean, we've known that for years, that they have a very good run defense. You know, obviously T.J. Watt wasn't there, but they should be good enough to stop the run. Nick Chubb was able to throw some of those guys off. I mean, he made Minkah Fitzpatrick look bad a couple times. And I think that's a huge thing with Nick Chubb is he's got the rare combination of power, speed, and patience that he's not just going to go for a hole. He's going to be patient, let things develop, and then he knows how to attack at full speed. And he's got enough strength where rarely does the first guy bring him down. And when that doesn't happen, all of a sudden, you know, he goes off for an extra 6-7 yards, and that wears on a defense. And the more that happens, the more you kind of get that physical, you know, wear and tear that if you're an offensive lineman, if you're a team that wants to run the football like the Browns do, that's what you want to see. You want to see the other team get worn down. You want to go on long drives, be physical. And Nick Chubb has that physicality combined, of course, with that game-breaking speed that makes him such a rare, dynamic running back, and probably as good as there is in the NFL right now.
Tim Bielik and I are going to step aside, take one more timeout. We'll continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Ryan Clark, ESPN analyst, on the one thing he thinks is the most consistent in the AFC North.
The Cleveland Browns have the one thing that is the most sure in the entire AFC North right now, and that's their run game. You know that they're going to be physical up front, and that Nick Chubb, his running style is as clean as the way he dresses for the game. It's as no nonsense as that is. He's about getting downhill. He's about creating yards. And then you watch him get in the open field, how elusive he is for such a powerful and strong runner. I love everything they do. And you spell him with former All-Pro and Pro Bowl back Kareem Hunt. I think that this offense has a foundation and a basis to lay their hat on. And now Jacoby Brissett, if you look at the 3 games he's played, Laura, he's been the best quarterback. He was better than Baker Mayfield. He was better than Joe Flacco for most of the game, and obviously better than Mitchell Trubisky. This team can be in the playoff hunt when we see Deshaun Watson return. And if you're AB, the general manager, or if you're Kevin Stefanski, the head coach, you have to feel very good about where this team sits 3 weeks into the season, especially when you factor in if the defense doesn't go haywire and short circuit, you beat the New York Jets as well.
And Tim, that's kind of the way the local media viewed it, they were pretty good, and it's kind of playing out that way. Nothing's assured. They have to keep playing well and try to get 5, 6, 7 wins.
Yeah, and I mean, I look at kind of ahead these next 5 games. I kind of was looking at the schedule. You know, we talked about, you know, these first 4 games are looking to be very easy in NFL terms. Then the next 4 is looking more like a gauntlet before the bye. And then, of course, you get the 3 tough tests before Deshaun Watson can come back. We've seen, you know, just, you know, in 3 weeks that those next 4 games after this one against Atlanta maybe don't look as intimidating because the Chargers are banged up. The Patriots probably might not have Mac Jones for that game, and Baltimore's defense can be thrown upon. We saw what Tua Tagovailoa did in week 2, and to an extent what Mac Jones did on Sunday. But, you know, Ryan Clark brought up a good point, you know, just the consistency of Nick Chubb, that rarely does he have a bad game. You know, rarely is there a game where the offensive line just can't create traction. They can't create holes. They can't, you know, break off one big run. And where I think, you know, when they get that one decent game, that's when things start to go well for them. And even the New York Jets, who have a pretty good run defense, once Nick Chubb kind of got going a little bit into that fourth quarter, that's when the Browns really started to get in control of that game before, obviously, the defense let that go. But, you know, it starts with the offensive line. If they're blocking well up front, it makes any running back's job easier. You combine that with one of the best backs in football, and you have a really good combination. And then you get complimentary play from your quarterback in certain situations when you need it, when you need him to be crisp in the short pass game, when you need him to make some of those intermediate throws, when you need him to make some third down throws more often than not. When you get all those things together, those are the key ingredients that add up to wins. And then when you get Deshaun Watson back in week 13, all of a sudden your margin for error opens up more now that you have an elite quarterback once he kind of knocks the rust off there. But for right now, the Browns have needed Nick Chubb to be great in this situation. 3 games in, Nick Chubb's been great for them.
All right, before I let you go, how do you think this plays out against the Falcons, and what do you see happening, and some keys?
I see a shootout happening. I mean, Atlanta's defense is not particularly good. We saw them give up 23 points to Geno Smith and the Seahawks. They gave up 27 points to a New Orleans Saints team that is not very good offensively right now, that really struggled in Carolina against the Panthers on Sunday. So I think it's going to be fairly up and down, which is, you know, mostly because Atlanta's defensive talent is not very good outside of A.J. Terrell, the corner. And, you know, with the Browns, obviously they're banged up. It'll be dependent on who's able to go. If Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney both miss the game, then that pass rush is going to be very problematic unless they get some blitzing, or if, you know, Alex Wright and the backups are able to get the job done. It's going to be tricky. But I think the Browns can certainly play through the fact that they understand what they're doing well. They know that they can win the game by running the football because they've done it 2 of the last 3 weeks, and that Jacoby Brissett's made enough plays to get the job done. I think it's going to be on that Browns defense to get a turnover, to win the turnover differential, try and, you know, get the ball back to the offense as quickly as they can, build a lead, and really force Atlanta to play catch up. And again, long drives for the offense. If they can do those things, they should be able to win this game. I think they should be able to win it, you know, unless a bunch of those guys on defense aren't able to play the game. And I'm talking including Denzel Ward and of the like. But, you know, there's no reason to think they shouldn't be able to go to 3-1 with the Chargers coming in week 5.
Agree with you wholeheartedly. Tim Bielik, plain dealer, cleveland.com, as always. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it, Tim.
You got it. Thanks for having me, guys. Have a good day.
All right, Tim Bielik. Make sure you read them. Pages of the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Jackson McCurry joins us on the other side of the break. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
Sports4CLE continues. We continue talking Browns, trying to go to 3-1, getting ready for a game with the Atlanta Falcons down in Atlanta on Sunday. Former Steeler cornerback Ryan Clark, current ESPN analyst, appears to be one of the guys who is becoming a Browns believer.
The Cleveland Browns are actually a pretty good football team, but the thing is this too, because of Deshaun Watson's off-the-field issues and now the suspension, we basically said the Cleveland Browns aren't going to be able to compete at the quarterback position until week 12. Well, guess what? They've actually probably had the quarterback advantage the first 3 weeks of the season. I think if you ask people Baker Mayfield or Jacoby Brissett, they'll go Jacoby Brissett. Obviously, Joe Flacco, no disrespect to him because he played well down the stretch last week. Jacoby Brissett or Joe Flacco, Jacoby Brissett. And last night, you heard what we just said about Mitchell Trubisky. I take Jacoby Brissett over him, and he also outplayed him. And so when you look at the Cleveland Browns, they can be in a position to be first or second in the entire AFC North when Deshaun Watson returns. This is a team that if they can get back to playing defense like we saw last year, Denzel Ward steps back up to that all-pro $100 million corner status, if we can see the young safeties, Gell and Johnson and Grant Delpit, and the interior linemen play a little better for the Cleveland Browns, this is a team that's going to be a playoff team. And for Kevin Stefanski to be able to see Amari Cooper and Jacoby Brissett now develop this rapport that they have down the football field, you have to be excited when you add that to the running game.
And with that, let's welcome Jackson McCurry into the show. He is the host of the Dawg Land podcast as well as co-host of the Top Dogs podcast. Jackson, by any accounts, the Browns have to be thrilled with what they're getting at quarterback play from Jacoby Brissett. Kevin Stefanski, whenever he was asked, kept saying they liked him, and you're starting to see some of the reasons why.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of criticism that the Browns were going to roll with Jacoby Brissett. Many wanted them to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, but it seems like Kevin Stefanski knew what he was talking about. A lot of people still criticize Stefanski for various reasons, which I still don't understand, but he believed in Brissett, and so far it's paid dividends. Brissett has exceeded my expectations so far. The offense has looked really good. Like Ryan Clark said, if the defense can get rolling, there's no reason why, if Brissett continues the start he's on, why the Browns aren't in playoff contention once Deshaun Watson gets back.
And again, it comes with the disclaimer they haven't played a great defense, and I get that. But Kevin Stefanski seems to know exactly what he has. The chemistry between quarterback and head coach is important, and they seem to have found it reasonably quickly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was very curious what the plan was with Watson's suspension looming, how they were going to get Brissett comfortable. And obviously the first week against Carolina, he didn't look the most comfortable. The whole offense didn't seem to be clicking. But ever since the Jets game, the Browns' offense has been clicking. It's only been 2 games, but there's no signs of there's any cracks in that foundation. So hopefully week by week, this offense continues to gel and keep putting points on the board.
So this is also an interesting one. David Njoku got involved in that game against the Steelers in a big way. He had a PFF grade of 89.6, third highest single game grade of his career. He had 57 of his 89 receiving yards after the catch. And that is a guy that plays to what Jacoby Brissett does well. Throw underneath, find mismatches. And David Njoku, before long, they're going to find him in a seam because he runs well enough, and Brissett is aware of where the lapses in defenses are.
Yeah, we saw glimpses of it in the Jets game. He had, I think, like 3 catches for 40 yards. So it was a matter of that was going to get better and better, I think, each week. And against Pittsburgh, you finally saw what the Browns saw in paying Njoku all the money they did. Njoku looked really good, especially after the catch, like PFF mentioned. He keeps building on this. You know, a lot of people that question the Njoku contract are going to be left wondering, what were we thinking? Because this looks like the Browns knew what they were doing. Brissett always had great chemistry with the tight ends, whether it was in Indy, New England, or Miami. So if last week was a sign of things to come, Njoku and Brissett seem to have a really good timing down, much like he did with Amari Cooper as well.
Yeah, and the flip side of it is Deshaun Watson is a guy who utilizes the tight end real well. So that's one of the things they were thinking with Njoku. I've been surprised, and I'm curious your thoughts on it. Brissett has a little bit of stronger arm than we were led to believe. He throws underneath, but that's because that's where the play is designed to go. When he's had some heat on his fastball, if you will.
Yeah, I think back to last week against Pittsburgh. He zipped to Cooper that went off Cooper's hands. It was like, what arm strength did Brissett have that we didn't know about? Now, I always thought he was good in the short to intermediate game. Obviously, the deep game still needs some work on based on what happened in Carolina. But, yeah, Brissett does have some zip to that ball. Maybe it's something that Van Pelt and Stefanski had worked with him during the offseason and training camp. But, yeah, Brissett does have a little zip to it. You do wish he had better touch with the deep ball, but yeah, he can fire it in there. I think week one, we've seen it with Peoples-Jones, and the last couple of weeks, he has zipped the ball in there on the short to intermediate game. So it's definitely a surprise, and I think it's something that maybe the coaching staff has been working on with him.
So Amari Cooper, back-to-back 100-yard receiving games the last two games. First time that a Browns receiver has done that since back in 2013 when Josh Gordon did it. He had a monster season that year. Cooper's done it 2 of his first 3 games. And that first game, if you added all the pass interference yardage that he drew, he would have been close to 100 yards in that game as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I have to wonder what Jerry Jones is thinking, knowing that he only got a 5th-round pick back for him. And his wide receiver room's been inconsistent for the first 3 weeks. But Cooper's been phenomenal so far. Obviously, the first week there was cause for concern. He only had a catch for 9 yards. But like you said, all the pass interference calls, he would have had 3 straight 100-yard games. But I found that stat so fascinating because of the wide receivers we've had here since 2013, since Josh Gordon, that Cooper's the first one with back-to-back 100-yard games. I think that was a mind blower to some Browns fans because we've had Beckham, we've had Landry, we've had other guys that have been capable of it. But yeah, Cooper's been great, and what a steal once again by Andrew Berry picking him up for what we gave up for him.
What do you think the next evolution of the Browns offense is? So what piece do you think gets added? We've seen Cooper's been consistent. The running game has been outstanding. We saw Njoku. What do you think is the next little wrinkle that gets added in there?
You would hope either Peoples-Jones or David Bell gets more involved. I mean, Stefanski has done all the right things so far, giving Chubb and Hunt their touches, getting Cooper involved, getting Njoku involved. If they want to open this offense even further, get one of the other receivers involved. Get maybe Harrison Bryant involved. He was a guy that I thought could break out in this offense, and he's had some flashes the first couple weeks. But if they can get just one more of these other playmakers involved in the offense to really open things up. Now, this is an offense that's averaging pretty close to 30 points per game, but if they can get just one more piece to open things up, this offense, I think, could really take off. Now, people are going to say, well, there's only so many touches for everybody. But, if it makes things easier and it leaves defenses second guessing themselves, that'll just make the offense even better in my book.
Yeah, the offensive line was, you were concerned because Treader left. The guy that you were counting on, Harris, got injured. Posic's been really good. You didn't have Conklin. And that line, we talked about it a little bit earlier in the show, 4th-ranked line by Pro Football Focus this week. How impressive has the line been in your eyes?
I mean, it's been really good. Like, obviously, the middle of the line, you have Bitonio and Treader who are all pro. You wonder what Posick was going to do. I think he's the 3rd-ranked center so far through the first 3 games, which is really good to see. Wills has had his moments where people wonder if he's ever going to pan out, but I think it was ESPN said he had the 2nd highest pass block win rate through 3 games, which is quite a good sign. And Jack Conklin, there was questions coming in off the knee injury, but he stepped right in last week, and it looked like the same old Jack Conklin. So the offensive line, while there was some worry coming into the season, is at its same top 3, maybe even the best line in the NFL. level that it's been ever since Bill Callahan took over a couple years ago.
Jackson McCurry and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we turn our attention to the Falcons. We're talking Browns and Falcons straight ahead. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Jackson McCurry from the Dawg Land and Top Dogs podcast. Kevin Stefanski met with the media earlier today, talked about what he has seen from this year's version of the Atlanta Falcons.
Good team coming off a big victory in Seattle. That's a very, very difficult place to play, and then to go get a win I thought was very impressive by their group. And even this whole season, they've played in some very, very close games. So we know that we have our work cut out for us. We know it's going to have to be a 60-minute game with this team. I'm very impressed with Coach Smith and his whole group, offense, defense, special teams. I think when you watch their offense, it's very difficult to defend. They do a lot. They do it well. They have very big players. I was with Cordarrelle Patterson. He's a very big football player. He runs very, very hard, breaks tackles, really good football player. And then on the perimeter with Drake London and Kyle Pitts, a big physical football players, active, great ball skills, very good rushing attack. So definitely have our work cut out for us. Defensively, it's a Dean Pease defense, which means they do a lot and they do it well. They can max drop into coverage. They can max blitz. And they do it. They understand the defense. I think he's got speed at all levels. I've been very impressed watching his group.
And Jackson, it's typical coach talking about the opponent coming up. Having said that, I'd feel a lot better about the Browns defending this Falcons defense if I knew that Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett were going to play, if Anthony Walker wasn't out. There are some issues that could create some problems.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's bad enough that we have some of our key guys missing on defense, and then we're coming into a big matchup against a tough offense. I watched the Atlanta game on Sunday, and I was so impressed with their running attack. Obviously, like Stefanski mentioned with Cordarrelle Patterson, he mentioned the big targets with London and Pitts. Plus, you have to take into account Marcus Mariota is a mobile quarterback, and we had fits with Trubisky last week. And you know, Mariota's more athletic than Trubisky. He can extend plays with his legs. That's going to be a key thing with the Browns defense. If JOK doesn't go out, that's going to leave Mariota space to run and make plays with his legs, whether it's running the ball or extending plays in the pocket. So this Browns defense is in for a big test. And if key injuries are going down, this could be a shootout, to say the least.
Yeah, the Falcons defense, not the greatest. They are giving up a lot of yards passing. But again, I'd feel a whole lot better if I knew JOK and Garrett and Clowney were going to be there, and we just don't know that yet. This is from Dog Pound Daily. 3 reasons the Browns should not overlook the Falcons. Number 3, Falcons played a difficult schedule. Rams and Seattle involved in that. They're 1-2 on the year. 2 young and talented, skilled position players, and we'll talk a little bit more about them. And number 1, Marcus Mariota, and we've already touched on that a little bit. He is a very mobile quarterback. He will run the football. He is effective doing it, and it's a nice combination because, as Kevin Stefanski alluded to, Drake London, Kyle Pitts are big target. Even Cordarrelle Patterson, who we mentioned earlier in the show, NFC Player of the Week, is right behind Nick Chubb in terms of rushing totals through 3 weeks. So they do have talented offensive players.
Yeah, I mean, Cordarrelle Patterson's come a long way. Many of us looked at him as a return guy, then they tried to use him at wide receiver, but Atlanta's found a role for him as a running back, and at 31, he's averaging 6 yards a carry, which is amazing because he's 31 years old. Guys tend to slow down as the older they get. But he's been great. You know, we mentioned London and Pitts. London was one of my favorite receivers coming out of the draft when the Browns had their draft pick at the time before the Watson trade, but he's impressed so far. Kyle Pitts, you know, still young in terms of a tight end, but he's shown the flashes that he can make big plays down the field. The thing with Mariota is, if you can keep him in the pocket somehow, I think, you know, the Browns are going to have a chance to stop this defense just because he hasn't been the best pocket quarterback. But like we said, if there's no pass rush coming, if Clowney can't go, if Myles can't go, Mariota's going to have room to run. And when he has room to run, it makes him more hard to slow down as a quarterback. And that's going to be, I think, the biggest key for the Browns defense this week is be able to somehow contain Mariota in the pocket and force him to throw within an established pocket.
Some of the things that you'll be watching for and some of the keys for the Browns, if they get it, they're 3-1. You got a little bit more time for everybody that's banged up to get healthy.
Yeah, it's just right now, and for me, it's keeping Mariota in the pocket and somehow stopping Cordarrelle Patterson. He's been tough. You know, Seattle's defense they're rebuilding. They were tough, but Patterson seemed to run through them this week. So that's going to be my biggest thing. If they can slow their running game down and put the ball in Mariota's hands to throw to these big young targets, I think the Browns have a good chance to win. But if Clowney and Garrett can't go, it's going to be tough for the Browns to generate any type of pass rush up front. You're going to depend on guys like Alex Wright, Isaac Rochelle, Isaiah Thomas. I mean, that's going to be hard for this Browns defense to have 3 young guys try to generate any type of pass rush against a decent Falcons offensive line. They have Jake Matthews. They have the right guard, whose name is escaping me at the moment. I apologize, but this is an offensive line that the Browns can beat. But if they don't have their studs up front, it's going to be hard for them to generate any type of pass rush. And that's going to allow Marcus Mariota to exploit the defense. And, you know, if he gets out in open space and, you know, throws downfield to these big targets, it could be a long day for the Browns defense once again.
Yeah, the way to, you know, I guess the way we look at it is you run the football. They've given up more yards passing. They've given up a boatload of yards passing, have the Falcons. But nobody's been able to stop Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt yet. And there's not really a reason to think the Falcons' defensive running defense is any better than what the Browns have faced.
Yeah, without a doubt. Like, many were worried about Pittsburgh's run defense last week, but obviously they were without TJ Watt. You know, it could be a scenario where if the Browns don't feel like their defense can go, Stefanski and Van Pelt might just say, we're going to run the ball and we're going to own the time of possession to make sure that Falcons offense doesn't see much of the field Sunday. And I think that's a great formula to have. When you have 2 all-pro caliber backs like we do in Chubb and Hunt, let them dictate the game, let them burn up as much time of possession as they can, let Brissett make the throws he needs to, and just grind the clock out, put 20 plus on the board, and tell the defense to give us just enough to try to win this game. And I think that's the great formula that they've had the first few weeks. Didn't work against the Jets, but I think that's the best formula in order for this Browns team to come away a winner on Sunday.
Gut feeling, and we, at this point in time, we don't know what that defense is going to look like in terms of who's going to play. Do you think the Browns find a way to win this and get to 3-1?
Oh, absolutely. I think, Atlanta is a team that's emerging. There's obviously still questions at the quarterback position, but when I look at the two sides, at the end of the day, the Browns are the better team. They have the better coach. I think Stefanski will find a way to win. And ultimately, we walk away Sunday, the Browns will be 3-1.
Jackson McCurry, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Great stuff, Jackson. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, Jackson McCurry. Make sure you check him out. The Dawg Land podcast, as well as co-host of the Top Dogs podcast. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow on Sports for CLE.